ex because of her hints about being exclusive. He didn't like the thought of leading her on. He was a bastard, but never cruel. Some women would disagree, and the tabloids had branded him pompous and cunning. If the papers sniffed around what he was doing, they'd write it up and turn it into a joke. He'd like to avoid the added scandal. Reality, however, was a rightful bitch, and he knew his fake marriage would need to look real in order to keep his father's lawyers satisfied. Neil pulled the long black car up to the curb and quickly opened Blake's door in front of the green and white painted coffee house. With briefcase in hand, Blake ignored the turned heads when he strode inside the storefront. The rich smell of freshly ground beans filled his nose as he scanned the tables searching for the man he pictured as Sam Elliot. Blake assumed he'd find a man wearing a business suit and carrying a portfolio filled with files of wifely prospects inside. The first glance didn't deliver, so he removed his sunglasses and started over. A young couple with dueling laptops sipped their lattes across from each other at one small table. At another, a man in crew shorts and a t-shirt argued with someone on his cell phone. At the counter ordering was a couple pushing a stroller. Stepping farther inside, Blake noticed the small frame of the back of a woman with a mass of curly auburn hair. Her toe tapped anxiously, or maybe she was listening to music through a set of earbuds. With his eyes still skimming the small crowd, Blake found a lone man occupying a plush chair. He wore a casual pair of pants and looked to be in his late 40s. Instead of a briefcase, the man held a book. Blake narrowed his eyes and caught the other man's attention. Instead of a flicker of understanding, the man's dark gaze fell back to his book. Damn, maybe Mr. Elliot was caught in the same traffic. Late never boded well for prospective clients, no matter what business they were in. If Blake had another choice, he would have turned and left. Walking past the lone redhead, Blake stepped around the stroller and ordered a plain coffee, then resigned himself to sit for a few minutes and wait. He placed his briefcase on an empty table and turned to get his coffee when the teenage kid behind the counter called his name. The hard weight of someone's stare rolled down his spine. His eyes scanned around the room to see who was watching. Instantly, a set of emerald green eyes narrowed as they took him in. The petite woman sitting alone wasn't listening to music or reading a magazine. She was staring directly at him. Her striking gaze returned to a small notebook computer before bouncing back his way. A flicker of recognition fell over her. He'd seen the expression before, whenever someone placed his name with his image. Here in California, the frequency of that awareness didn't happen as often as it did at home, but Blake recognized it nonetheless. The woman seemed harmless enough. That was until she opened her mouth and spoke directly to him. "You're late." 2 words. It took 2 words in a voice so low it dripped like sin and put phone sex operators to shame to render Blake speechless. Red's words registered. "Excuse me?" "You are Mr. Harrison, right?" The question was simple, but Blake couldn't quite comprehend it. He answered on autopilot, completely derailed by the woman in front of him. "I am." She stood and only met the top of his shoulder. "Sam Elliot." She introduced herself and stuck out her hand for him to shake. It wasn't often that Blake was kicked back a few notches. Yet, with only a couple of words, the woman in front of him had done so. He reached out and took her hand in his, and a wave of heat surged over him. Her penetrating stare and knowing smile wavered when they shook hands. Her palm was cool, even if her demeanor was one of complete control. "You're not a man." Blake wanted to groan. That had to be the most stupid thing he'd ever said to a woman in his life. Ms. Elliot, however, was nonplussed. "Never have been." She offered him a smile and exposed perfect teeth as she removed her hand from his. He missed it instantly. "I was expecting a man." "I get that a lot. Most of the time it works to my advantage." She indicated the chair across from her. "Would you like to sit so we can get started?" He hesitated, not sure if he should continue this interview.